Hi, Steve Cooper, and welcome to another Rank Success podcast. And today's podcast is about what happens in a coaching session. I've called the podcast Grow, and I've done that because there is a very successful, established coaching model called Grow. So if you're listening to this and you're aware of it, this will be a refresher for you. And if not, I wanted to just use that model just to structure a conversation here, to structure my thoughts and to lay out some food for thought for you to reflect upon. Because when I talk to officers and support them, whether they know it or not, I am using questions that are tried, tested and proven to try and really grow confidence, to grow or raise or develop awareness in individuals, and to try and to identify and establish the gaps that often exist with promotion candidates before they become match fit for a promotion selection process. So whether that's an assessment centre, an interview, or the myriad of tests that you may well face. And so I just wanted to introduce this model to you. It's called Grow. As I say, it's very established in the coaching world, but I use it, and I want to use it now to kind of structure this and to trigger some thoughts in your head. And I mean, you might even want to listen to this podcast with a pencil and a paper, and just to write down some of these questions, because they're the questions that I and many other coaches will use to help to support and to really try and raise your awareness of the challenge, both personally and process-wise, for you to arrive in your best state for a promotion selection process in your force. And so this model Grow then, it's essentially there as a coaching model, and cops have lots of different ideas and thoughts, some positive, some negative, some critical around what coaching is, what it isn't. So I'll try and do a hop, skip and a jump through what that is very quickly now, but I wanted to kind of use the Grow model to as I say, go through and break things down a little bit, and to give you an idea of the kind of conversations that I have with my customers as to how they then use that in terms of reflecting, getting to work on things to arrive at that promotion selection process, that interview door, the door of the interview room, in a confident state, more aware of the role, more aware of the challenges facing policing, and more aware of themselves. Because all of that reflects and shines through to a promotion panel. Because when they see someone who's confident, who walks in, who's confident, sits down and responds to questions confidently, it signifies and indicates the depth and breadth of preparation that they've put into that opportunity. And as I say, it comes across well to promotion boards. So I could go through lots of things. I mean, we could be here all week talking about what coaching is and what it isn't. So I just want to give you a very short definition that coaching is unlocking a person's potential to maximise their own performance. So that's hitting the nail on the head really with what you want to do for a promotion board. It's helping them to learn rather than teaching them. Coaching focuses on future possibilities, not past mistakes. So it's very much a future focused process, and to use the Grow model is just one model. There are lots of models in coaching, and you can do some pretty bespoke models around confidence issues or other areas of where people need to develop or achieve or work towards their goals. But we're going to focus today on Grow. And as I always say on these podcasts, I know your time is precious. So if you started listening to this and you got a late shift this afternoon, you can always come back to it. But what I'm going to say to you is all of the questions here are here to kind of stimulate and trigger some thoughts and reflection. And most of these questions, these techniques, if you like, are covered in my digital downloadable toolkits that you can download from my site, ranksuccess.co.uk. So a bespoke sergeant's toolkit or a bespoke chief inspector toolkit, and then with both of those is the option to download a 4-hour promotion masterclass with me, suited, booted, my serious head on, going through these issues so that you can sit down and watch a video for 4 hours of me explaining these issues in slower time to help you get match fit for that promotion opportunity that you have as your goal. And that's a good kind of segue there into the model, because the first stage of it, as I alluded to earlier on, is goal. So it's always good to start with what the goal is, because you can make a lot of assumptions and presumptions around what a person's goal may be. So if you're coming to get some support for promotion, or you're downloading my toolkits or watching my promotion masterclass video, we could assume that your goal is to get promoted, and that's it. And yet that is something that we would probably call a process goal. It's a goal en route to a broader, a bigger, a longer term goal. So your end goal might well be to become a Chief Constable, so a member of the National Police Chiefs Council one day as part of your career. And why not, for those of you that are thinking about that? So the goal would be to get promoted to sergeant and then to get promoted from sergeant to inspector. And those little process goals, or they're rather big ones actually, but those process goals are en route to your end goal, which is perhaps or maybe to become a Chief Constable, or to develop, or to become a firearms officer, whatever. So we always start with goal. And just while we're on the topic of coaching, not everybody's coachable. Some people are very cynical. You'll see some of my testimonials on my site where people go, I was really cynical about coaching, Steve. I thought it was mumbo jumbo claptrap. And I have some refreshing conversations with cops, and I've been there. I won't say I've seen it all, because I haven't. I don't think anybody's seen it all, but I've got the book, or I've read the book, I've got the t-shirt, I have a degree of experience, and it's quite refreshing sometimes when people say, oh yeah, I was really cynical about it, Steve, it's rubbish really. And hopefully I gently, persuasively convince them that they are wrong, and hopefully when we go through some of these questions in me, you will see why, because coaching is very much around asking questions that often require introspection, which means you can't go to anyone else for the answer for that. You have to go inside yourself, inside your heart, inside your head, to come up with these answers. And I think it's quite a great support tool, coaching, for those that are coachable. And as I say, not everybody's coachable. So what I mean by coachable is, there's a willingness to have an open and honest conversation, knowing that the individual, i.e. me, or the coach that you find, is someone who's there to help you. And when you think about it from that from that perspective, you can see that it's very much a supportive approach, even though the questions may be tough for you to answer there and then on that spot. And again, a lot of learning comes from reflection and thinking and understanding where your gaps are, and understanding you may not know it all, and that's okay. But this is being pointed out to you again and again and again, that you don't know the answers to questions which you might think you should do or could do. Certainly you will want to get to work on some responses to them to develop and raise your awareness. So being coachable, being honest, having a conversation, and that's a good definition for coaching, is a conversation with a purpose. I quite like that one because it's short, and the purpose is supporting you to get to your goal, whatever that is. But I will assume and presume that it is to get to the next step on the ladder. So whether that's sergeant or inspector, that's fine. So it's very much around raising your awareness and growing and building your confidence. So whilst we're on this first stage of the grow model goal, there are some questions, and these are not all the questions, but I'm going to use the questions that I sometimes use. I won't use every single one of these questions, but it's a bit of a toolkit of questions that are bespoke to an individual situation. People come to me with different levels of confidence, knowledge, awareness, from not having a clue really, which is why they want to make a start, right through to people who are, perhaps they've been for a promotion selection process before and been unsuccessful, but they've got some meaningful feedback and guidance to work with, and they want to really try and make that next step to get through the process this time, and that happens a lot as well. So the first part then, goal. I will often ask some questions like, what is it that you really want here? So I want somebody to actually lay out for me what their goal is. Well, okay, Steve, I want to get promoted to sergeant. Okay, well, what's your long-term aim? Well, that's it. I'm happy with that at the moment. I'm just taking it day by day. If I can get there, that's brilliant. So, I'll then break that down a little bit more sometimes. But can you describe precisely what you want to achieve? So we break down that statement. I want to get promoted to sergeant a little bit more, because underneath that are a whole load of things that can be done if someone decides to do it. Because otherwise, it's just a statement. I want to get promoted to sergeant. Okay, I will get promoted to sergeant by doing these things is a different thing. So I'll then start getting you an individual to really think, what do you need to commit to do, really? What do you need to do before anything else? And where will you start? Where will you start? And as I alluded to earlier on, if people don't know where they're starting off, and that's why they come and get some coaching support. If they don't know where they're going to start, then you can, or they can, you can, anyone can download a digital promotion toolkit and make a real start. Hit the ground running straight away. One way of thinking about the digital toolkits that I've put together is, just reflect for a minute and think, well, what if someone had already written down everything that you need to know, or almost everything you need to know, to make a real solid start on your promotion preparation? Well, that's reality, and you can do it anytime you like. So where will you start is one. When will you start? And that's a really big one, because coaching's all about action. And talk is cheap, and general statements are general statements. But these coaching questions kind of get to the heart of things, and I am going through them at a pace here because I'm on a podcast, but I might actually leave quite a pregnant pause after each question. One, because it's a very powerful technique, and two, it allows you time to think. So I might say, when will you start, and leave a pause. Then we can start getting into things like, okay, well, if you want to get promoted to sergeant, what impression do you want to leave the promotion board with? When you leave that room and you walk out, what do you want them to think? What do you want them to say? What do you want them to write down? Because that's a good way of thinking, okay, well, this is what I want to happen, because the next flow on from that is, how am I going to do that? And then drilling down a little bit now into what's the value of promotion for you? What does promotion mean to you? So that's starting to break things down a little bit more, whether you think through about the value of promotion or whether it means something to you. Try and define that and distill it and refine it and write it down. When you write something down, rather than an abstract thought or idea in your head, it becomes something solid and tangible that you can look at, read, digest and commit to if it's an action. And in relation to that, I will then start getting into the, what I call the real meaningful stuff. Tell me what you know about the role that you're applying for. So in this case, sergeant, it could be inspector, it could be chief inspector. And as I've alluded to in some of my YouTube videos and my blogs, this is sometimes a gap. And for some people, it's a very small gap because they can mentally do the activity to kind of dredge it up from their memory, from their grey data banks, and try and make a link to it. The reality, of course, is that they don't know, they are not refreshed on it, and there are a number of functions and dimensions of each role that will serve you very well to know and equip you very well when you go into a promotion board. And again, those are covered in many of the free and other resources that I offer. So tell me what you know about the role you're applying for. If you're on a game show or something like that, because that's effectively where things stop. It's a big gap for people. Many candidates go for promotion interviews or submit themselves to the process without ever being able to answer that question. They think they know because they're probably doing it. They're doing acting, they're doing temporary. They know what they're doing from the perspective that they work in, whether it's that station, that area of a force. But they've not done any broader thinking, and they've certainly not started practicing and talking about it out loud so you can hear yourself saying it, as well as working to some meaningful information to help you have a conversation around that. But tell me what you know about the role that you're applying for. What's the role of a sergeant? What's the role of an inspector? Is normally, we need to do a lot of work around that to get people, and candidates do tend to have to really focus on that and then start practicing about it, talking about it. And then I might ask, I rarely ask why questions as a coach. You can research that if you want to, but why has some slightly different dynamics around when you ask it. So coaches will generally ask, well, you'll recognise them, investigative questions, who, what, when, where, why, how, kind of questions, the 5WH questions, because it requires you to say a lot, and you don't say, and I don't have to say very much at all. So this question here is, why should anyone be led by you? That is an academically very tough question to answer. There is a book of that title, Why Should Anyone Be Led By You? You'll see a quick review of it on my website. It's by Rob Goffey and Gareth Jones, two leadership gurus, if you like, who got together and wrote a book by that title. But why should anyone be led by you is a very, very difficult question, because you can only go inside yourself to answer that. But in the context of preparing for a promotion board, it is the question. It's every question that the board want to know. Yes, they may ask you a whole range of questions, but essentially, why should anyone be led by you? It's just a case of leaving that with you for now, because if you can answer that question, and with that, the kind of, you might think, well, that's really difficult, Steve, but if I tell you that the response to that is a personal statement, and I've done blogs and podcasts and videos on personal statements, so go and have a look at those, and have a look at those and think, well, if I was asked that question, why should anyone be led by you? At least I have an idea about where I'm going to get my answers from, or my response from. And then on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being high, how confident are you in approaching this opportunity? So really just getting to the heart of, in terms of your goal, working towards your goal, where's your confidence at the moment? And it's okay for it to be, people will often say to me, okay, my confidence at the moment, really, Steve, honestly, it's about 3 or 4. And I will just say, okay, what will it take? What would it take? What needs to happen for that to move up to 10? And people will often say, well, I need to do something. I need to really, really focus on getting hold of information and committing to reading it and to kind of bring it all together. So, the reality around that really is that people's levels of confidence differ, and some are very low. But by asking that question, what needs to happen to get it up to 10, people really do go to the part in their brain where they say, I need to do a whole load of work, Steve, or I need to find something that helps me do a whole load of work really, really quickly and make the best and most effective use of my time. And obviously, clearly, I'm alluding to my digital toolkits and the material and information and guidance, and the blogs and the podcasts and the videos that are, many of which are free, that you can download and listen to, as this podcast is, just to help you think and reflect through that. So that's goal. So that's just some of the questions I might ask in the goal section. And as you can see, it's meaningful. It triggers a lot of thought and reflection, and coaches tend to use this model for that reason. It helps raise awareness, builds confidence, and kind of helps you identify your gaps so that you can get to work on them. And then the second part of this model really is reality. So reality check. Okay, well, that's your goal. We've been through that. We've been through what needs to happen. So the reality check really is, this is really the meaty bit, if you like, because if you don't understand your own reality, then things are going to be more difficult for you. So just kind of getting that out. There are a few questions that I could ask, and I'm not going to go through them with responses now. I'm just going to let you hear some of them, and you can write them down if you want to, or think about them. So I might go through questions like, what's good about your situation right now? Who will you have to be to achieve this goal? So again, that's a slightly different tack if you're having to think about who you will need to be. So who are you as a person? Who will you need to be to achieve this goal? So on a scale of 1 to 10, how committed are you to achieving promotion? That's important. You'll see the scale coming in again then, because it's something that coaches will use. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being high, how committed are you to achieving promotion? It just gets you to think that through, rather than just have it as an abstract concept in your head. How do you feel about applying for promotion? Reality check. How do you feel about it? Nervous, uncertain, sick, frustrated, confused? It doesn't really matter. I'm asking you the question, how do you feel about applying for promotion? So you notice the word feels in there. Coaches very much ask around, they pick up on language, but they often ask things like, they're interested in what things look like to you, what they sound like to you, what they feel like to you. So different perspectives around the challenge that you face and your reality. Another question, who else is involved in this? Because as you know, someone who's, if you're someone who's, let's just say you're just taking the exam or you've taken the exam, you'll know how hard you will have worked over quite a few months, quite intensely. And you know the impact on your family, on your available time, and how stressful it can be. And the reality really is that some people who are ambitious go for promotion and they go straight from the exam into promotion preparation. That can be 2 or 3 months. And there ends up being a knock-on effect between, relationships or your available time with your family or other things you want to do in your life. So who else is involved in this? So it may be, your partner, your wife, your children, other commitments you'd promised. So the reality is that perhaps you might not want to actually think about going for promotion on this round, and you'll defer it, make an informed decision to defer it to the next process, because you, your family, everybody's exhausted because they all work around you while you're focused and studying, and they'll have to do the same to a certain extent if you're going for a promotion selection process. So that perspective of who else is involved is importantly. And another question I might ask is, look intuitively, what's really going on here? What's the bottom line? And only you'll know the answer to that, but it just slows time down a little bit for you to be able to think about and answer that. What's your greatest concern about it? What obstacles or barriers need to be overcome? And if those barriers were removed, how would that change your approach? I'll also ask things like, what action steps have you taken so far and with what results? So, some people will say, yeah, well, I've done a whole load of stuff, Steve. I just need to have a real focus on this coaching session around what I can do, how I can kind of refine and distill my approach. So we might talk about a structured plan, breaking down some milestones or steps. And then things like, how much time do you need to prepare? And for some people that's quite an impactful question, because some processes only give a couple of weeks notice before you've got to have your application in, or very short time to prepare for a board. Others, you might know there's a process coming up in 3 months. But if you can give yourself as much time as possible, you can do a whole load of thought and reflection, and that develops you over a period of time, a longer period of time, and raises your awareness. What resources do you already have to help you achieve this goal? People might say, well, actually, I've downloaded a whole load of stuff, Steve. I've read your blogs, I've had a listen to your podcast, I've read some of the stuff my force has got in terms of its priorities, I've had a look at the HMIC report for my force. So I've kind of done quite a lot, and that's fine. But it might be that you need more resources, you need different resources, so that you kind of doing a 360-degree examination of perspectives. And again, that's where I can come in, or my digital toolkits and the promotion masterclass video can come in, because it's, if you're going to do the work, do it all, do as much as you can, and try and get yourself to the best position you can in the time you have available. So the grow model is very good, just in terms of we're only on the reality section now. So that's goal and reality, and then options. And this is really good because you can really start thinking about, okay, I'm clear on my goal now, I'm clear what I've got to do, I've done a reality check, and now we want to look at the options stage. So I might say it's just a bit of help with brainstorming around this. Sometimes you can kind of get a mental block with it about what your options are. There's a great analogy here with, the NDM, the National Decision Model, and your options and contingency stage. What are all the different ways in which you could approach this issue? Well, you might not think in that context with the NDM, but you're trying to think about all the ways that you can actually meaningfully consider relevant available options to help you progress. So what option or options do you choose from those? So you have to think them through in order to be able to select one. So what can you do to prepare? And I might say as a coach then, okay, what else? Well, I could do this. And what else? Well, I could do that. And what else? Until we've really squeezed and exhausted this options box so that your awareness is where it should be. And then I might be what I call supportively mischievous and say, well, if you had more time for this, what might you try? And if you had less time, what might that force you to try? And then the other kind of point around this really is, how will you measure your progress? So, a personal assessment of yourself as to where you are in the process moving towards your goal. How will you measure your progress? So again, some thoughts there just within that model, just within that simple structure, the GROW model. Options, and of course the option you've also got, as I've said before, is a whole load of stuff of YouTube videos, podcasts like this, free blogs, both on my site ranksuccess.co.uk and also on policehour.co.uk, where I also write material and articles and editorial for aspiring promotion candidates. And the last bit excuse me, the last bit really for this model, the GROW model, is the way forward, or will do. So coaching is very much about action. Otherwise, all the stuff we've just talked about is just thinking and talking, which is good. That's helpful. That's supportive. But this model, as most models do in terms of coaching, finish with action. What will you do? What's the way forward? Having talked and listened and, being coachable, what will you do? What action will you do? So again, we'll just work through some of the steps on that. What's the first next step after this coaching session or after this mental activity? What would be the smallest or the easiest step for you? Because, the first step of 1,000 miles, the first journey of 1,000 miles begins with that first step. So the quote says by Lao Tzu. So what would be the smallest or the easiest step for you to take right now? Which one action could you take in the near future to move you forward? How could you make the tasks or the actions or the preparation more enjoyable or fun? Wow, did I just say fun? And you might think, well, actually, Steve, I could think about all this as a perspective, from the perspective of it being fun. But there's a serious issue there, really. It can be serious, it can be stressful, you can be under time pressure. But hey, you're working towards a life goal, you're working towards something you want to do for yourself, for your family, for increased money, for a different perspective in the organisation. I'm sure you can find a bit of time for fun as well in there. So, in terms of making the tasks or the actions or preparation more enjoyable or fun, for me the link there really is removing any mental pressure, unnecessary mental pressure. And as I've alluded to before, many people go for promotion and there's a lot of mental pressure there before, which comes or stems from uncertainty, lack of awareness, and not having ideas upon which to move forward. And as I say, that's where my digital toolkits come in, because you can download those straight away and you're using all your activity, all your time, your mental focus to get stuck in, to really hit the ground running. What's the role of a sergeant or inspector or chief inspector? What's the framework, the CVF, really all about? What's my leadership style? Or have I only got one, or have I got more than one? So there's lots of things in those toolkits, structures for promotion applications, great examples of what good evidence looks like at the level of the rank you're going for, together with some insights that I've put on there as to why they're good examples. And So again, some food for thought. Carrying on with the last stage of this model, really, is we're starting to get to the accountability stage. What will you do now and when? So no pressure really, but the question is what it is. What will you do now and when? Or I might say something like, give me 3 actions that you could take that would make progress this week, get you started this week, get you moving towards your goal this week. Because if you don't do action, if you don't commit to action, then it's probably likely to dissipate and dissolve in terms of action. So trying to get some accountability here is really important at the end, because coaches can do all this, but they can't do anything if the coachee, if you like, doesn't commit to the action and move forward. So if we were doing a course of sessions or one-to-one support, we might start at the beginning and say, okay, just talk me through what you've been able to achieve since the last session. And we both know what you committed to. And yes, it may well be that you didn't have time to do it genuinely for operational reasons. I mean, it's policing after all. However, there's also your personal commitment here to get things done and to start moving towards, realising this goal of promotion. So another aspect I might say is, what support do you need and from whom? Write that down and go and ask them. If it's somebody, a coach, a mentor, a friend, a peer, a colleague, a line supervisor, a senior manager, but don't go ask too many people. It's one of the things that I see quite a lot is people come to me in a very confused state. They've asked everybody they know and their friends and their dog about what they think about their application evidence, or what examples they're going to give, or other aspects, and they get all the opinions of those people and the dog, and you just end up completely confused and your brain fried. Try and find 1 or 2, maybe 3 at the very, very most, people who really care about your success and have a real interest in seeing you through it and getting and achieve your goal, and work on that. And if you want something independent, something external, then as I've alluded to, you can download a promotion toolkit or the promotion masterclass and make your own decisions and give due weight to any other advice, guidance or support you get from other sources. So what commitment? Again, here's the scale. On a scale of 1 to 10, what commitment do you have to doing the work necessary to secure your promotion, to doing this work? Then I might ask, at the end, okay, what would massive action look like? Massive action. What would that look like? What would that sound like? And what would that feel like? And then, of course, finally, I might say, well, is there anything else that you want to ask or to talk about? And from that perspective, really, that's a quick whistle-stop tour for you in this Grow podcast, to give you an insight into coaching conversations, to give you an insight into the questions that might be used as the tools to elicit information, to raise awareness, to build confidence, and to support you meaningfully on your journey as you move through a process or progress towards your goal day by day, step by step, or month by month. Just understand it's an iterative process, and whatever your level of confidence is at the moment, whether you use coaching or not, you can be in a match fit, much more confident, much more aware state when you arrive at your opportunity. So again, Grow is one model. It's just one aspect, one model within coaching, and so it can be used within life coaching. So that's quite broad, or outside, just outside the context specifically of police promotion. And the Grow model can be used in the context of perhaps finance, work generally, more generally. Other things you want to achieve in your life, your CPD or learning, fun. I mentioned fun earlier on. You can still do a whole discussion around using the model Grow for fun, to get more fun in your life. Health, really important. We could do a whole session around that. Environment, friends, family, those kind of things. Coaching can be quite a broad tool, but it can also be a bespoke tool to help you in terms of your promotion aspirations. So any uncertainty, any questions you've got around the areas of going for promotion. So things like evidence and examples, what evidence or examples have I got that might make the case or support a case for me being considered for promotion. That can be a whole conversation just around that. And you'll see my kind of coaching wheel on my site. I've divided up like a cake into these areas where people may need just that little bit of refined support. The interview itself, well, that's a biggie. Lots of people need support around that. There's an interview guide you can download on its own for that. Confidence and self-belief. Well, for me, I find that the confidence and self-belief thing comes from moving forward incrementally, asking questions, working up those answers for yourself. That raises your awareness. You can think and reflect on those, and then identify and close those gaps, which builds your confidence. Focus and preparation. Focus is important. You're focusing on getting promoted. Preparation side of it is everything. So planning and preparing is important with that. So again, there could be a whole conversation around that. I've mentioned the role. We could do a whole thing around the role. I do cover that in some detail in the guides and materials. And knowledge generally. So some people do not know what the challenges are facing policing in the next 2 to 5 years. They certainly don't think any longer beyond that, the medium term, and neither the longer term. In terms of technology and things that will change, what will it look like in 10 years, 15 years, etc. And of course leadership. You're going for a leadership role. There needs to be some thoughts, some reflection, some commitment to that in terms of you as a person, in terms of how you will lead, because certainly when you move to sergeant, the biggest jump, arguably the most difficult on the promotion ladder, you are moving from an individual position really to being judged on performance of a team. And that's a different context, that's a different perspective. And so getting match fit in relation to that and having a conversation on that is an area where, coaching can help you, and that my material and guides can support you. So, okay, I am up to about 35-36 minutes. I know most people's attention span, mine's much lower, but I've been told it's around about 45 minutes maximum. So with some reflection time built in, I hope that you find that useful. As I say, you can play this back again, write down some of those questions. It's like a free coaching session for you. There are a lot of the questions that I ask. You may well be able to ask yourself them, or get a friend or a loved one to ask you those questions, and just think about and reflect on them. I wish you all the very best with it, and I will be back with another podcast shortly. And until then, take care and stay safe.